I still get emails from libertarians whining to me about how I hate on them and diss them. I get emails from libertarians calling me an Uncle Tom sellout who works for the Jews. And that's another thing about libertarians. Like liberals, they get indignant when you point them out as actual racists while they say the most racist stuff. And some of the most anti-Semitic sentiments I hear come from libertarians, who often make it very clear to me that I work for a Jew. And I'll remind y'all, I do work for a Jew. His name is Jesus Christ. And Jesus, the Jew, also blessed me to be independently contracted by PJTV. Wow, Jews are so evil, they offer me a job telling you what I honestly think. What do you offer me except for hate? I still have yet to see anyone provide me with evidence that I hate libertarians though. Having a legitimate disagreement and expressing my disagreement in a civil manner and defending myself against attacks from libertarians ain't hate. Instead of accusing me of hate, why don't y'all examine your own behavior? Y'all act like you know so much that you're beyond anybody disagreeing with you. And the only reason why anybody would disagree with a libertarian would only be due to unreasonable hatred. Nothing else. Because we don't do anything to cause people to dislike us. We're the most reasonable and rational people on the planet, and there is no fathomable reason for you to disagree with our perfectness. Reminds me of liberals. If you disagree with a liberal, then you must be a racist or a sexist or a homophobe or something. It can't possibly be anything else.
I think what's happening. Propaganda.
Libertarians, I don't hate y'all, and I am very aware that it's not all of you who I'm describing, but perhaps y'all can admit that many of y'all do fit what I'm talking about. Maybe y'all can call them out instead of reprimanding me for supposedly painting y'all in a bad light, when it's a lot of these cats calling themselves libertarians. They're the ones who are giving you a bad paint job. And until y'all provide me with some video of me saying, I hate you, it would be nice if y'all would knock it off with the false accusation. I disagree with you. People can do that without hating each other, you know. I have many disagreements with you, and I lay a lot of that stuff out in my audiobook, Weapon of Mass Destruction. And I'm quite positive me saying I hate libertarians ain't in there. But I can sum up my disagreement with you right here. And in doing so, I hope many people will understand the difference between conservatives and libertarians. If you ask many libertarians what they think the first role of government is, they will give you the opinion that the first role of government is to protect our liberty. Unless you're an overzealous libertarian, then the role of government is to not be at all, and we should just live in anarchy. But let's keep it to the former. So where it is typically the opinion of libertarians that the first role of government is to protect liberty, we conservatives know the fact that the first role of our government is to protect life. It kind of shows that in our founding documents, like the Declaration of Independence, pointing out that we have God-given rights, the first of which is life, then liberty. Or when you look at the Bill of Rights, you'll see that a person shall not be deprived of their life before it says they shall not be deprived of their liberty. See, the fundamental difference between libertarians and conservatives is that libertarians typically give liberty precedence over life and see us conservatives as anti-liberty because we value life first, then liberty. Libertarians believe a person should have the liberty to do whatever they want, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else. And they'll say things like, I personally don't like such and such, but if somebody else wants to do such and such, they should have the liberty to do so as long as it doesn't harm anybody else. Now keep that in mind and tell me how that adds up when libertarians are typically pro-abortion. Well, they may say things like, personally, I don't like abortion, but a person should have the liberty to do so, which means pro-abortion. But I thought you libertarians said a person should have the liberty to do whatever they want as long as they don't harm someone else. Well, I can assure you, the baby is going to be quite harmed. And you libertarians think backward stuff like this because you value liberty over life. Or you think that drugs should be legal as long as people are responsible about it. I'm missing the part where doing cocaine or heroin is a demonstration of being responsible to begin with. Or when I've known many people who have whined about their baby mama bugging them about money to get their kids some diapers, then they'll say, I don't have money to get diapers, but they had enough money to get that bag of weed. Well, Zoe, that sort of stuff wouldn't happen if drugs were made legal. Really? Okay, I'm sold. Hey, maybe the dopehead will be compelled to pick up some diapers if they're stocked right next to the chronic. Libertarians are funny. They say they want smaller government, but don't realize how much government will increase with their legalize everything position. Like drugs, for instance, that the taxpayer will be flipping the bill over. I assure you. Because if people feel entitled to such vices, you can be assured that they will feel entitled to other people paying for them. You think medical marijuana is just about treating the suffering? You're high if you believe that disgusting agenda that uses truly suffering people as a pawn. If marijuana can be classified as medicine, then it can be lumped in with healthcare, and people will be able to enjoy smoking their weed at the taxpayer's expense. I don't even have to smoke weed to see how fun it is that libertarians think that they're for smaller government, and if you want to legalize drugs, I hope you realize that you would have to have the federal government force the states to make it legal. I mean, if we have drugs legal in some states and not in others, then that puts law enforcement at odds with each other in different states. We already got problems with drugs between America and Mexico. You want those kind of problems to escalate between the states too? So you're begging for the federal government to assume power over the states, just like they did with abortion. Now all the states are forced to allow women to kill their children and ignore the child's right to life, because the liberty to deny the child the right to live is more important. When you place liberty over life, then people will take their liberties as entitlements to have their liberties at the forced expense of others. If a person feels they have the liberty to be entitled to have an abortion, chances are high they will also feel entitled to have someone else pay for it. First, the baby is going to pay for it with his or her life. And second, the taxpayer is going to be forced to pay for that choice. If they feel entitled to take life, they'll feel entitled to take your money too. Good luck with telling drug users who would have the liberty to do drugs that will have been made safe by the state, by the way, that they will have to assume the cost themselves for the toll their drug use took. Yeah, but the doctors will regulate their usage. I'm sorry, did you say regulate? Sounds like bigger government to me. Oh, and when the doctor says you can't have any more, do you think the drug user's gonna say, okay, doc, you know what's best? Nah. They'll just be making a visit to that black market that you libertarians swear will be done away with by legalizing drugs. Pretty much everything that libertarians say people should have the liberty to do leads to bigger government, more taxes, more regulations, more bureaucracies. Believe it or not, in practically all instances, keeping these things illegal is the best defense in keeping the government smaller. Because as much as you see these things as being illegal as big government, you fail to see how much bigger the government will be if you do make such things legal. All these things that you're talking about are rooted in dependency, addiction, and entitlement. That's the culture that you're arguing for. You're not talking about liberty. Your so-called idea of liberty leads to more government control. Legalizing drugs is really an endorsement of a dependency culture. And you are very naive if you think that the cost of dependency won't be forced on others. The government will be stealing from others to pay for this, calling it taxes. Tell me again how people should have the liberty to do whatever they want as long as they don't harm anybody else. Stealing is harmful, especially when the government steals from people to pay for someone else who is doing those drugs they were supposed to be responsible with. Yeah, well, look at alcohol, Zoe. It's legal, and look at the damage it does. Yeah, and your logic is to legalize more life-ruining substances? I still don't get that. But I'll give you my biblical take on alcohol. I don't trip over alcohol because the Bible says to eat, drink, and be merry. Notice it doesn't say drink to be merry, as the Lord doesn't want us to be dependent on alcohol for merriment. Notice that it says eat, drink, and be merry, meaning that your drink should be accompanied by food, because if you're just drinking, then chances are you're going to speed your way towards drunkenness. That is why it says first eat, then drink, or at least if you do drink first, it's probably a good idea that you follow with some food. Be merry with your drink, not a drunk. So considering that the Bible makes these conditions for alcohol, I don't trip on alcohol, namely wine. But I don't see where the Bible makes such exceptions for things like marijuana or other drugs for recreational use. The Lord says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I don't think he says getting high is the way, the truth, and the life. And don't give me that crap about marijuana is okay for smoking because God made it. Yeah, God made the tree of knowledge of good and evil too, and he said don't eat from it. Just because certain things exist doesn't mean they're meant for certain indulgences. But anyway, y'all, my point is, I get sick of libertarians trying to say I hate and misunderstand them. I said nothing hateful about y'all in my commentary, nor have I ever. Yeah, I can be salty, but I ain't hateful. Like I said, you want to charge somebody with hate? Check the libertarians who attacked me in the first place, calling me a neocon, a sellout, bootlegging Uncle Tom, Zionist. I've shown many times and repeatedly giving y'all examples of why I disagree with you, proving that it's not just, hey, I disagree with you because I feel like it. And you libertarians have to know this, or you wouldn't think that I hate you in the first place. If you saw a video where you came to the conclusion that I hate you, then you had to have seen the explanation I gave on why I disagree with you. There's no other way, which means you just can't handle people disagreeing with you and just rejected any disagreement that I have and just concluded that I hate you for no reason. And y'all wonder why I think a lot of y'all are full of yourselves. You wonder why I also say that you're more like liberals. If you're telling me that people should have the liberty to abortion, drugs, prostitution, redefinition of marriage, etc., then I'm telling you that you sound like a liberal. You think that just because you're fiscally conservative, that makes you the capital of conservatism? Wrong. You fail to understand that your social positions will cancel out your so-called fiscal conservatism because you're duped if you think that your social positions won't come at the forced expense of someone else. I don't at all hate libertarians. I got libertarian friends whom I have great respect for. I have great respect for people like Larry Elder. Maybe it's because he represents actual common sense. So much so that he always has to remind people that he's a libertarian. Because if he didn't, people would think he's a conservative due to all the common sense conservatism that he speaks. And that's because Larry Elder is flipping awesome at espousing conservatism. I think even better than he is at espousing libertarianism. And conservatism is easier to espouse because it's already common sense. Conservatism isn't easier to sell because libertarianism appeals to more self-indulgent sentiments, as opposed to conservatism, which is rooted in self-restraint. So we don't exploit our freedom to a point where the government assumes the position to ration it out to us. I'm Alfonso Rach with Zonation. Now, you can accuse me all you want about me hating on you, but you got no proof. And you're wrong if you think I've not carefully considered my disagreements with you. I do work for a Jew. His name is Jesus Christ.